Hello everyone, Scott here, I'm back. It's the Movie Reviewers 100, a collaboration movie review channel with new themes every week. Unfortunately, it's been kind of a light week so far. I'm wrapping up Robert Downey Jr. week, and we've only had 2 videos on the man thus far, which is a little bit disappointing. But I'm pleased to be talking about a film that I actually just saw for the second time, and that's Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is probably, I think, the best of the 3 Iron Man movies, although the first one's good as well, and they both have their flaws. I think we can both agree that Iron Man 2 isn't as good, although I do like Iron Man 2, you know, on the whole. Not a bad film. A lot of people seem to think that it's pretty bad. I'm like, no, it's not so bad. But Iron Man 3 is definitely a step up from that. And I think one of the principal reasons why is because the script was written by and is directed by Shane Black, who worked with Robert Downey Jr. in 2005 on a film called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Now, if you're not familiar with Shane Black, he's primarily known as a screenwriter. In the late 80s and 90s, he and Joe Esterhaus were like the top dog screenwriters in Hollywood. There was a bidding war for every one of their scripts that they wrote during a certain period of time. They were each paid millions upon millions for them. I think the highest went to Shane Black for a script for Long Kiss Goodnight. Joe Esterhaus wrote Jagged Edge with Jeff Bridges and Glenn Close, and Basic Instinct with Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone, and Sliver again with Sharon Stone. Showgirls, he wrote the script for Showgirls, and then his resume takes a turn for the worse at that point. But he was, you know, a real big shot, and Shane Black was as well. Lethal Weapon was his first screenplay, and of course it turned into a big hit movie, and he was paid a lot of money for it. And I found out very recently, actually, that one of the reasons why Lethal Weapon was such a big selling point is because it actually entertained the reader and not just made a good action picture. There are all sorts of messages that only people who read the script would get, you know, like he's talking about the incredible house he's going to buy once he sells the script for millions. All these are embedded in the script. I'm just like, well, that's fun and all, but doesn't exactly benefit the movie, does it? Anyway, in one screenwriting course I took, it's, you know, one of the teachers like, you should put things in just to make it more fun for the reader, not just strictly tell what's in the film. And I'm just like, well, okay, whatever. After Lethal Weapon, he wrote The Last Boy Scout with Bruce Willis. And unfortunately, the script for Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Long Kiss Goodnight with Gina Davis, of course, and then he made his directorial debut with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, starring Robert Downey Jr. and Michelle Monaghan. And Iron Man 3 is the first screenplay that he, I think he rewrote basically the Iron Man script, because he's credited with another writer with writing that. But he probably rewrote the script as he directed as well. So it's really, he's got a Doc Savage film that he's working on right now, writing, and he may end up directing that, I guess. But Iron Man 3 is his only other film as a director aside from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. So I decided, why not check them both out? I'd seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang probably 3 or 4 times, so I decided to take a look at it one more time. And man, is it a complicated movie. Super complicated plot. I'd seen it before, so I knew basically what was happening, but still, there were times when I'm just like, okay, the girl with the pink hair, what's she doing again? Why is she there? You know, it's all, they explain a lot in the end. You know, you learn a lot of things about what's been going on, but I was trying to follow on the plot and keep in mind what everyone was doing because I'd already seen the picture, but it was still really difficult. Downey plays a small-time thief named Harry, who sort of stumbles into, as he's running from the cops after busting into a store, he stumbles into a bunch of actors who are auditioning for a part, and they mistake him, the people running the audition, mistake him for an actor, so they give him a script and tell him to read the lines, and because he's so emotionally frazzled from running, he gives what they think is a very good performance. So they say, okay, you're our guy, we're going to fly you out to LA for a screen test, we're going to, you know, you're going to be our new discovery, everything like that. And and the producers pair him up with a real private investigator who's played by Val Kilmer. And the setup basically is he's supposed to learn how to be a private eye from Val Kilmer by coming in on some of his surveillance jobs and what have you. But things get really, really complicated because there's a murder and there's all kinds of a business involving dead bodies, and then there's this girl who he knew back when he was a kid in his hometown that's who's been trying to make it an actress in LA for a long time, and they sort of hit it off again, but things get even more complicated there. Really complicated story. It's based on a novel, one in a series of crime novels, pulpy crime novels from the 40s or 50s, I think. I'm not really sure exactly. I haven't done the research on that. But it's an entertaining movie. You know, Shane Black is known for his dialogue. His dialogue is very smart-ass. You know, there's lots of good lines in it, especially so here. And so when I found out that he was going to be doing Iron Man 3, I was very pleased. I wasn't disappointed in Iron Man 3 a bit. There is a lot of funny bits, funny business, but there's also a really good suspenseful story. Now, I had read, of course, about the Extremis program, but only sort of briefly. It's like it involves Extremis. The plot for Iron Man 3 involves Extremis, whatever that is, and I didn't know. Now going back and watching the film a second time, I can see how all the pieces are fit together in the first half hour or so of the movie. There's a whole bunch of information that's packed into that first half hour involving all the different characters and what they're about and everything like that. The story involves, basically, there's a botanist who's been trying to figure out a way to reprogram DNA in order to grow back body parts. That's what Extremis is for. The botanist is played by an English actress named Rebecca Hall, who co-starred with Scarlett Johansson and Vicky Cristina Barcelona. So Downey was involved with her in the past at one point, and they meet up again. Meanwhile, Downey, of course, is now has Pepper Potts, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, living with him, but he's sort of traumatized by what happened in the Avengers involving the wormhole and the aliens and everything like that. So another thing about Iron Man 3 is it's not just a sequel to Iron Man 2 and 1, it's also a sequel to the Avengers, because they talk about the Avengers so much. And they also talk about the Avengers a lot in the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series, but that's a different video. The president has been taunted, the president of the United States, played by William Sadler, has been taunted by this terrorist called the Mandarin. He's played by Ben Kingsley. He's taking credit for a number of different bombings. But what Tony starts to figure out is that these aren't conventional bombs that are being exploded, they're actual people. People have undergone the Extremis program, the program to regrow arms and legs and what have you, limbs missing in combat. They're all veterans. But the Extremis is unstable, and so these people end up blowing up in the middle of a square of people, and they're sort of terrorist acts. So the president's trying to find out what's going on with the Mandarin, where he is, how to stop him. He recruits, of course, Cheadle, Rhodey, who's got the Iron Patriot suit. It's the Iron Man duplicate suit. Meanwhile, Tony is still sort of suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome, I guess, and he's unable to sleep, so he's busying himself building tons of Iron Man suits. He's built like 42 in total. There's a whole huge bunker full of Iron Man suits that he has stored away. And his latest invention, of course, is super ridiculous, because it's a suit that actually flies towards him in parts and snaps onto the various sections of his body in very coordinated movements. I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. I thought that each one of these suits needed one of these arc reactors in order to do things, all right? And now each of the parts can operate on their own, fly around on their own. They all have mini rockets on them. It's pretty ridiculous. I mean, no, come on, all these Iron Man movies are kind of ridiculous. The suit itself is pretty silly, the way it, works and has all these missiles and guns stored in it, despite the fact that it's only slightly thicker than, it's crazy. But, comic book movies, you suspend your disbelief, it's fun. Who else is in this movie? Some good people. There's one guy I recognize from the third season of 24. He's been in some more stuff recently, but I can't remember his name. He's one of those actors with 3 names. Not like Junior, though. Yeah, really good movie. Terrific action sequences in this movie. Really excited by some of these action sequences. When I first saw it, it was a little bit overwhelming, but I went back, actually. I was killing time before some other movie, so I popped into one of the theaters showing Iron Man 3 to just watch the end again, and I was really impressed by the ending. And one thing that's really cool about Tony Stark is that his, all his weaponry and armor is great, but his biggest weapon is his brain. He's an incredibly smart guy, and that's what makes it a funny contrast between that and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, because Harry really isn't that smart of a guy. He does a lot of dumb stuff, and he's constantly being scolded by Val Kilmer for that. At one point, Val Kilmer says, "Look up the word idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find?" And Harry goes, "A picture of me?" He says, "No, the definition of the word idiot." But Tony, you wouldn't think that he's like trained in combat, but because he's smart, he acts like Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes, of course, is the other big franchise that Downey has now. In that opening scene of Sherlock Holmes, he's like brawling with this guy in a ring, and he's not as big as the guy or strong, but because he's smarter, he can anticipate all the guy's movements and know exactly when to hit and when to duck and things like that. And that's kind of what Tony does in Iron Man 3, especially during the ending, because you've got these extremist guys running around, and because they're regenerative skin makes their bodies really hot. They can like cut through metal and things like that. So here guys trying to punch through Tony's armor, and he's either ducking out of the way or he's ejecting himself out of one suit and then running over and leaping into another one, just hopping from one suit to another. It's pretty crazy. In the climax they have basically all the Iron Man suits from Tony's store all sort of flying to the one location, and some of them are fighting guys remotely. Jarvis is controlling them. Other times Tony is operating one and then he jumps out because it's damaged and he jumps into another one. Meanwhile, Rhodey's got his Iron Patriot suit. It's a crazy, crazy climax. But as much as I like that climax, there are two action sequences that come before it that are really great. One is Tony is fighting off a bunch of the Mandarin's henchmen, and he's waiting for his suit to arrive because it's flying to him from Tennessee in parts. It's the suit with all the different parts. So the first two parts arrive, his arm basically with a blaster in the palm, and then one of his boots basically with a thruster in it that allows him to fly. So he's fighting off all these guys with one hand and one boot, and that's a crazy scene. Again, Tony's smarts come into play because he's still able to control himself and flip around backwards and things like that and blast people and duck out of the way, even though he only has the one arm and leg to work with. Pretty great scene. Also, it has one of the best lines in the movie from a henchman who has like nothing to do with the rest of the storyline. The other one, of course, is the scene that takes place on Air Force One, where one of the terrorists basically blows a hole in the plane, and all the people get sucked out and go flying out into the open sky and fall into the ground. And so Tony races out and catches them one at a time, and keeps them from falling into the water, or drops them down gently into the water, but basically has to keep them from dying. That's a really fun scene. That whole sequence is lots of fun. Darn good movie. Darn good movie. It's definitely one of my favorite of the Marvel movies. I'd say it ranks like right below the Avengers at this point, with the ones that I like the best. I still like Iron Man, of course, and Iron Man 2, and kind of like Thor, not as much. Captain America, I don't like that one at all. Of course, there's a couple more of these Marvel movies coming out before the next Iron Man film. The next Avengers film. You've got Thor coming out in November, and then you've got another Captain America movie coming out in April, and then one more called Guardians of the Galaxy, and I don't know any of those characters really, before Avengers 2 comes out in the first weekend of May of 2015. That's a while to wait till now, but another Joss Whedon film. I'll be looking forward to that, of course. So thanks very much for watching. We've got a new theme starting tomorrow. Appreciate it very much. Comment below while you still can. They've taken away video responses, but they haven't taken away comments yet, so please do. Like us, subscribe to us if you haven't already. We've got 7 guys here on the channel, and most of the week's pretty full, but a little light this week, but that won't always be the case. Thanks very much. Later.